I built the bridge with my own hands. Every board was measured and cut in my garage, every nail driven straight with a hammer I'd owned since I was 20. It stretched across the creek that ran through the back of my property, 10 feet wide, sturdy as an ox and weathered from years of use. It wasn't a showpiece, it wasn't designed to impress anyone. It was just a simple, honest bridge. It got me from the house to my fields, from the barn to the equipment shed, from morning to night. My wife used to joke that it was the only bridge she ever trusted me to cross. We'd laugh about that as we carried feed, harvested corn, or just sat in lawn chairs watching the water roll beneath our boots. She painted the railing once, sunflower yellow, said it made the place feel cheerful. She was right. That bridge stood for nearly 20 years without a problem. No one complained. No one cared. Until the HOA moved in. It started slowly, like a tick you didn't notice until it burrowed in. One day I saw a sign at the entrance to our old road. Welcome to Whispering Pines, a community of distinction. I didn't remember voting on any name, and I certainly didn't remember agreeing to let a bunch of suburban retirees tell me what I could or couldn't do with my own land. But apparently, that's what had happened. They said I was within the community limits, which gave them authority. They didn't mention that the limits had been redrawn quietly over the years by a group of neighbors who thought we needed order. My land, once proudly independent, had been annexed without so much as a knock on my door. I ignored them at first. When I got the first letter telling me my mailbox was non-standard, I tossed it in the trash. When they told me my chickens were creating noise pollution, I laughed. When they sent me a fine for unauthorized paint color on my barn, red, the color it's always been, I wrote them a polite, firm letter that I never mailed. But the bridge? That was different. I woke up one morning to the sound of engines, growling, chewing, mechanical engines. I looked out the window, and there they were. A work crew in bright orange vests, chainsaws humming, boots trampling over my property like they owned it. I ran out in my pajamas. Hey, what the hell do you think you're doing? One of them, a younger guy with a clipboard and a city face, pointed calmly to the creek. Structures being removed per HOA directive, sir. Non-compliant bridge. I stared as they pulled apart my wife's sunflower yellow railings like they were garbage. The boards cracked. The nails screamed. The whole thing came down in under 15 minutes. Years of work. Gone. When they finished, they left behind a laminated notice nailed to a tree. Removal of unauthorized structure per Whispering Pines. HOA Code 7B. Failure to comply will result in further disciplinary action. Disciplinary action. Like I was some unruly child. I stood there in the mud, my fists clenched, the morning dew mixing with the dust left behind by their trucks. I wasn't angry about the lumber or the money it would take to rebuild. I was angry because it was mine. Because they came onto my land, destroyed what I'd built, and didn't even have the decency to look me in the eye while they did it. That's when I knew this wasn't about appearances or safety or neighborhood cohesion. This was about power, about control. And they thought I wouldn't fight back. They thought wrong. I showed up to the HOA meeting the following Thursday evening. It was held in the community clubhouse, an overly polished building with fake stone walls and a perfectly manicured lawn that smelled like chemical fertilizer. The kind of place that looked like it had rules about what shade of beige your curtains could be. I didn't dress up for it. I came straight from the fields, still wearing the same boots I used to feed the goats and fix the tractor. My flannel shirt was damp with sweat and soil, and I tracked a little mud across their white tile floor on purpose. Let them see what real work looks like. The room was filled with folding chairs, mostly empty, save for a few homeowners whispering to each other with their HOA newsletters folded neatly on their laps. At the front was a long plastic table draped in a burgundy cloth. 7 people sat. Behind it, the board. They looked like they were about to hold a town trial in an old western. The one in the middle was Arnold Brackett, the HOA president. You could tell by the way he sat, chest out, chin up, hands folded like a man who thought he was in charge. He spotted me and gave a rehearsed smile like he was running for something. Mr. Talbot. Good evening, he said into the microphone, like we were old friends. Is there something you'd like to discuss? I didn't waste time with pleasantries. Why'd you destroy my bridge? He paused for just a second, enough for me to notice, then gave the same kind of answer I'd heard from bureaucrats all my life. It was not in compliance with HOA visual and safety guidelines, he said smoothly. Per Clause 7B, the structure was subject to removal. My bridge was on my land, I replied, voice level. You don't have the right to touch anything that isn't yours. Brackett gave a sympathetic shrug. Actually, Mr. Talbot, your property falls under HOA jurisdiction. Your late wife signed the community covenant in 2020, granting us authority. The words hit harder than I expected. I felt the breath leave my lungs. My wife had always handled the paperwork. She loved her little garden and wanted to be part of the local events, potlucks, plant swaps, the fall fair. She must have signed, something without realizing what it meant. You're telling me she handed over the right for you people to come onto my land with chainsaws? I asked. She opted into a shared community agreement, Brackett said. You're not being singled out. We enforce rules for the good of everyone. I scanned the room. A few board members avoided eye contact. One of them, a woman in a blazer with HOA pins on her lapel, gave me a weak nod like she agreed but couldn't say it out loud. Brackett went on, droning about standards, visual harmony, property values. None of it real to anyone who worked with their hands or grew their own food. It was all language meant to justify control. I didn't argue. I just stared at him for a long, quiet moment. Then I said, You made a mistake. Brackett's smile flickered. We're just enforcing the rules, Mr. Talbot. No, I said. You trespassed. You destroyed private property and you treated my wife's signature like a deed to my soul. I turned and walked out before he could say another word. That night I went home and pulled out every folder of land, records, zoning maps, and permits I had buried in the office drawers. I called up an old friend from high school who became a land use attorney. I started taking pictures, drone shots of the creek, the stumps where the bridge used to be, the tire marks in the soil. They thought they buried me under legal paperwork. What they didn't realize is that I've spent my whole life digging. And now, it was their turn to feel the shovel.